I wasn't supposed to be back in town until Friday. At least, that's what Sienna thought. The conference in Atlanta ended a day early and I figured for once I'd do something uncharacteristic. I'd surprise my wife. Not because anything was wrong, not because I had suspicions, not yet anyway. I just missed her. I missed home. The quiet routine of our evenings. The way she hummed when she cooked. The way our bed felt too big without her. So I didn't text her. Didn't call. Just boarded an earlier flight, grabbed a cab from the airport and headed straight to the office to pick up a file I'd left on my desk. I figured I'd swing by, grab it, maybe grab flowers on the way home. I wasn't planning to look at the security footage. That was a split-second decision, almost unconscious. Our building's elevator logs are tied to a simple system: swipe your badge, and the camera logs a visual entry. Upper management gets access, mostly for security. I've used it maybe twice in the past year. But something, call it intuition, nudged me. A gut feeling. So I tapped into the system at the security desk and rewound back a few hours, just curious to see who had been through. And that's when I saw her. Sienna. She was standing near the lobby elevators, talking to a man I didn't immediately recognize. Her posture wasn't defensive. It wasn't businesslike. It was relaxed, familiar. She smiled. Not her polite office smile. Her real one. The one that creased her cheeks and lit up her whole face. They stood close. Too close. Her hand lingered on his forearm, casual but in asterisk mate. She leaned in when she laughed, brushing against his shoulder. It wasn't just the proximity, it was the ease between them. The chemistry. The quiet way he looked at her like this wasn't new. My stomach dropped. I rewound the footage. Watched it again. Zoomed in, checked the timestamp. It was exactly 12:14 p.m. I had been in the air. She thought I was in Miami. That's what she had told me. Let's catch up after your flight lands in Miami, she texted that morning. I reread it, then looked at the footage again. And then it hit me, this wasn't Miami. And that wasn't nothing. I stared at the monitor long after the video ended. I didn't recognize the man right away. He wasn't someone I worked with directly, but after a few minutes his name came back to me. Daniel. He'd been at a company mixer last spring, one of those open bar, awkward small talk kind of things. I remembered he made some offhand joke about Sienna's laugh being contagious. I hadn't thought much of it at the time. I remember shaking his hand, thinking he was harmless. Just another guy in marketing or R&D. I left the office without picking up my file. The ride home felt surreal. I kept replaying it in my head, the footage, the way she looked, the text she'd sent. Was this the first time? Had I missed earlier signs? I tried to calm myself, tried to find a logical explanation. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe they just bumped into each other. Maybe the angle made it look worse than it was. But then why lie about where she was? When I got home, her car wasn't in the driveway. She texted about an hour later, something about being swamped at work, pushing dinner plans to later in the evening. I played it cool. I told her I'd gotten back early. Said I was home now. Her reply came a minute later. Wait, home? Already? Thought you were still in Miami. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I sat in our kitchen, staring at the white tiles on the backsplash we picked out together 2 years ago. We argued about those tiles. She wanted gray, I wanted white. I won. I remember she laughed and said, well, you better not regret it. That memory felt like it belonged to someone else now. When she walked in around 7:40 p.m. she looked surprised, but she covered it fast. Wow, she said, setting her purse down and kissing me on the cheek. I didn't know you'd be home this soon. I wanted to surprise you, I said. She smiled, but her eyes scanned the room like she was waiting for something to go wrong. Or like she was calculating something. I couldn't tell which. She poured herself a glass of wine, Cabernet, her favorite, and offered me one. I declined. We sat in the living room, the TV playing something neither of us paid attention to. I asked how her day was. Usual meetings, she said. Back to back. You know how it is. I nodded. See anyone interesting at the office? I asked, watching her closely. She blinked. Not really. Why? I paused. Just wondering. That's when her expression changed. Just for a second. Like a flicker of something, hesitation? Fear? Did something happen? She asked, shifting on the couch. I checked the elevator footage, I said calmly. From earlier today. Silence. Her face didn't crumble, didn't flush. It stiffened. Professional. Defensive. Why? She asked, voice cool. That's a weird thing to do. I didn't reply. I didn't have to. I bumped into Daniel, she said finally. He was on his way out. We just chatted. You said you were in Miami, I said. She waved a hand dismissively. I was going to say Atlanta, I just mixed it up. You travel so much, I forget where you're going half the time. I let the lie sit in the room. It looked friendly, I said. More than friendly. It was nothing, she replied quickly. You know how those cameras are. The angles are terrible. The lighting's weird. And don't even get me started on the way that system glitches. You can't seriously be reading into that. But I was. And the more she deflected, the clearer it became. You don't trust me? She asked, her voice rising just a notch. Is that what this is? You're spying on me now? Using office security footage to catch me in some imaginary affair? I didn't answer. Her tone sharpened. Wow. Okay. So this is who you've become. Suspicious. Controlling. Do I need to ask permission before I talk to a coworker now? That's how fast it flipped. From a simple observation to an accusation. I was suddenly the one on trial. The man with the audacity to question her. She stood up. I'm going to take a shower. Maybe you should think about why you're trying to twist something innocent into something dirty. I let her go. I sat alone in the silence of our living room, the sound of the shower echoing down the hallway, and I thought about everything. The camera footage. Her lies. Her full deflection. The way she made me feel like I was the one who had done something wrong. But I wasn't crazy. I saw what I saw. And I wasn't the one lying about Miami. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was angry, though I was. Not even because I wanted answers, though I did. No, I didn't sleep because everything started falling into place, and once it did, it wouldn't stop. I lay there in the dark, Sienna asleep beside me, her breathing slow and steady like nothing was wrong. Like the last 12 hours hadn't turned my stomach inside out. And my mind began pulling pieces together. One by one. A quiet inventory of moments I'd overlooked, things I'd brushed off as quirks, as stress, as the natural drift of time. First, the passwords. She used to leave her phone on the table, screen up, unlocked half the time. She used to laugh at how bad she was with passwords, always asking me to help reset something. But 3 months ago, maybe 4, she suddenly started locking everything. Her phone. Her laptop. Even her iPad, the one we shared for Netflix in bed. No more facial recognition. No more, can you check my texts for me? She said it was because of work. New IT protocols, she claimed. Everyone's tightening up. Security's a mess. I didn't question it. Why would I? I trusted her. Then the bathroom. She used to leave her phone charging on the nightstand. Now it followed her everywhere. Shower, laundry room, even when she walked the dog. And when it buzzed, she'd check it like it was nothing, like it was spam or work updates, but she always tilted the screen away from me. Always. There was one night, weeks before this, when she dropped her phone on the couch cushion and scrambled like it was a live grenade. I joked, relax, it's not gonna detonate, and she gave me a look I didn't recognize. Not playful. Not amused. Just cold. And the texts, those were harder to track. We used to have open devices. She'd leave hers around. I'd glance at it sometimes to check the time. But lately, entire conversations were gone. She'd say her phone was glitching. That she had to reset it. That she lost data. She played it casual, but her eyes would always flicker like she was measuring my reaction. Her explanations had sharpened over time. They used to be soft, plausible. Now they were defensive, rehearsed. Every excuse had a backup. Every story came with a preloaded alibi. And I, a fool that I was, had accepted every single one. I stared at the ceiling, every memory taking shape with more clarity than I was ready for. Like the mood swings. There were weeks where she was all over me, touchy, talkative, oddly affectionate. Then just as suddenly she'd turn cold. Mechanical. She'd dodge hugs. Roll over in bed. Say she was tired, or stressed, or just needed to reset. It used to worry me. I asked if she was okay. I offered space. But now I realized I was only seeing her pendulum swing between guilt and permission. Like she'd done something, felt bad about it, then did it again. The excuses, too, those were everywhere. Running late. Team drinks. Emergency client call. Going out with the girls. And I believed her. Every time. Because why wouldn't I? She was my wife. She wore my ring. Slept in my bed. Knew the layout of my soul. I didn't suspect her. I didn't want to. But trust makes you blind. It makes you deaf. You rationalize until your gut stops talking to you entirely. It was 3 a.m. when I finally sat up in bed, my heart pounding. I couldn't pretend anymore. The footage wasn't a one-off. It wasn't weird lighting or a coincidence or a glitch in the system. It was a leak, a tear in the perfect image I had of her, of us, and it had been widening for months. I got out of bed quietly, grabbed a hoodie, and walked downstairs. I needed air, clarity, something to fill the silence that had grown between us like ivy on old bricks. I sat on the back porch and watched the night spill into morning, the edges of the sky turning steel gray. I thought about the last time she looked at me like she used to. It was, what, October? We were on the couch watching something dumb. She leaned into me, rested her head on my shoulder, and whispered, "Do you ever think about when we met?" I remember smiling, saying yeah all the time. I remember the way she looked at me, soft, curious, like she was seeing me for the first time all over again. And now I wondered, was she thinking of me? Or of someone else? The pattern was there. It had always been there. Like stars you don't notice until someone points them out, and suddenly the constellation is impossible to ignore. The lies, the withdrawal, the emotional whiplash. It wasn't in my head. I'd seen it. I felt it. I just hadn't let myself name it. Infidelity doesn't always come crashing in through the front door. Sometimes it seeps through the cracks, quiet and careful. It changes the way someone says your name, the way they touch your arm, the way they answer a question with just a little too much space between the words. I'd missed it, but not anymore. When Sienna came downstairs later that morning, yawning and pretending like everything was normal, I just nodded at her, said good morning, made coffee. She kissed my cheek like nothing had changed. But everything had. Because once you see it, once the pattern clicks into place, you can't unsee it. And I wasn't going to keep pretending I was blind. 2 days after the elevator footage, I did something I hadn't done in years. I left work without telling anyone. Midday. No meetings, no excuse. I just walked out, grabbed my keys, and drove. I didn't even realize I was heading home until I was already halfway there. I didn't call Sienna, didn't text. I knew her car would be in the driveway. She claimed she was working from home that day. Back-to-back Zoom calls, she'd said that morning, pacing around in yoga pants and a loose cardigan. Coffee in hand, phone always in reach but never unlocked in my presence. It was instinct at that point. My brain had stopped searching for reasons. It was only following signs. When I pulled into the driveway, her car was there. I sat in my own for a few minutes, engine ticking in the warm afternoon. My hands wouldn't stop tapping the steering wheel. Not from nerves, more like restraint. Because I didn't know what I would do if what I thought was true. The house was quiet. I stepped inside slowly, like someone walking into a memory that no longer belonged to them. The kitchen smelled faintly of red wine. Her favorite bottle was uncorked on the counter. A single glass, still half full. The blinds were drawn. That's when I heard the music. Soft, muffled, playing from the bedroom speaker upstairs. It was Sienna's playlist, the one she made on our 5th anniversary. I hadn't heard it in months. She said she got tired of it. Said it made her feel too nostalgic. I moved up the stairs slowly. The floor creaked under my feet, betraying every careful step. I knew I should have left. I knew if I saw something I couldn't unsee, it would scorch itself into my brain forever. But some truths don't care about your timing. When I reached the top of the stairs, the hallway was dim. The bedroom door was cracked open. The music spilled out, a song we danced to at our wedding. My throat tightened. Then I saw it through the crack. 2 silhouettes in the adjoining bathroom. Steam clouded the mirror, but I saw enough. The movement, the laughter, the outline of another man. And Sienna, her back turned, but unmistakable. Her hair up in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just stood there. And for a moment I wasn't even angry. I was still, hollow, like I'd slipped out of my own body and was watching it from above. There was a blazer on the floor. His, definitely not mine. Next to it was a pair of shoes, shiny, polished. The kind you wear to make a good impression. I hadn't seen him yet, not clearly, but I didn't need to. I turned around, walked back down the stairs. My steps felt distant, detached. I placed my house keys on the kitchen counter beside the wine glass and left. No note, no confrontation, nothing dramatic. I just left. I didn't stop shaking until I was 3 blocks away. I don't remember where I went after that, just drove. Past strip malls, gas stations, down roads that barely showed up on GPS. At some point, I pulled into a park, sat on a bench near the pond, and stared at the water for hours. I tried to cry. I couldn't. What I felt wasn't sadness. Not then. It was clarity. Cold, surgical clarity. This wasn't confusion anymore. It wasn't me being paranoid or misreading signals. This was confirmation. This was truth. And the truth had a face now. That night, I didn't go home. I booked a cheap hotel on the other side of town. Just a bed and a lamp and a window that faced nothing. I didn't even turn the light on. I just lay there, shoes still on, staring at the ceiling, letting the silence press into me like weight. And the strangest thing? I felt relief. Because the waiting was over. The guessing. The doubts. The hours spent rereading texts, reinterpreting conversations, wondering if I was crazy. I wasn't crazy. I just hadn't wanted to see it before. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. Packed my things, not just for work, but everything I needed for the next few days. I knew I couldn't stay in that house. Not with her. Not with the ghost of what we used to be still living inside the walls. When I stopped by again, hours later, she was gone. Her car was missing, the blinds were open again, and the house smelled like bleach and citrus candles. The bathroom was clean. Immaculate. As if it hadn't happened at all. But the blazer was gone. And the music was off. The only thing out of place was a single pair of cufflinks I didn't recognize, still sitting on the dresser. I left them there. Like evidence. Like proof that I hadn't imagined any of it. I slept at the hotel again that night. And the night after that. I didn't respond to her texts. There were 3 of them. Hey, are you okay? Where are you? Can we talk? No mention of what happened. No acknowledgement. Just a faint concern like I'd disappeared without reason. But I hadn't. She was the one who vanished. She'd been vanishing for months. I was just finally seeing it. I left the city on a Tuesday. No goodbye. No note. No dramatic final conversation. I just walked out of the hotel room, tossed the key card into the lobby trash, and drove west until the skyline disappeared in the rearview. I didn't know where I was going. All I knew was I couldn't stay. Every street reminded me of her. Every coffee shop, every corner store, every park bench. Ghosts of a marriage I thought was still alive whispered from everywhere. So I drove, stopping only for gas and to throw my phone in a dumpster outside a truck stop somewhere near Abilene. It was liberating and terrifying all at once. Cutting off the oxygen to your old life doesn't feel brave, it feels like suffocating on purpose just to see what happens. By dusk, I crossed into a dusty Texas border town whose name I didn't even know until I saw it on the library's welcome sign, Monroe Flats. Population, under 2,000. Flat land, cracked roads, wind that never seemed to stop. There was a trailer for rent behind a rundown gas station. The sign read monthly only. No pets. I asked the guy behind the counter if it was available. He looked at me for maybe 3 seconds too long. You running from something? He asked, voice gravelly. No, I said. He shrugged. You'll fit in. I paid him cash 2 months up front. The keys came with a chipped mug and a pair of mismatched spoons. I didn't ask questions and he didn't offer details. The trailer was a rectangle of rust and faded paint, but inside it was dry, quiet, and surprisingly warm. It smelled like dust and old carpet and something vaguely sweet, maybe vanilla or mildew or both. I didn't care. That night, I lay on a squeaky bed under a thin blanket, staring at the ceiling. My name was no longer mine. I didn't say it out loud. I didn't sign anything. I was no one. And it felt right. Over the next few weeks, I built a routine. Woke up late afternoon. Worked the night shift at the gas station. Came home at sunrise. Ate instant noodles. Read tattered paperbacks left behind by whoever had lived in the trailer before me. Life shrank to the essentials. A small fridge. A worn jacket. A paperback with no title on the spine. At the gas station, I stocked shelves, mopped floors, rang up beer and cigarettes. The regulars didn't ask questions. They barely made eye contact. There was something sacred about the anonymity we all shared. Nobody cared who you were, only that you weren't trouble. I told myself I had vanished. That I was free now. But the truth is, vanishing isn't about leaving a place, it's about erasing the parts of you that remember what it felt like to be known. And that's the part one hadn't figured out how to do. At night, when the shift got quiet, I'd catch myself staring out the window, thinking about her. Not the betrayal. Not the bathroom. Not the lies. Just the quiet moments before it all fell apart. The way she used to curl her feet under mine on cold nights. The sound of her voice when she read grocery lists aloud. I hated those thoughts. Because they didn't belong to her anymore. They belonged to someone who didn't exist. And yet, they still showed up. Uninvited. Unshakable. It was around the 6-week mark when everything shifted again. It started with a reflection. I was restocking the vending machine in the waiting area just before dawn, half asleep and running on sugar and cheap coffee when I saw it, her. In the glass. Not in front of me. Not behind me. Just there. Her hair was longer, tied back in a braid. She wore a blouse I hadn't seen in ages, but I recognized it instantly. Green with tiny white birds. The same one she wore in the elevator footage. I spun around. Empty. Nobody there. I stood frozen for at least a minute, waiting for my brain to catch up. Maybe it was a hallucination. Maybe it was my guilt playing tricks. I touched the glass. Still warm from my breath. Later, I checked the outdoor cameras. Nothing. No cars. No pedestrians. Just wind and shadows and the hum of power lines. But the next morning, something new appeared. A wrapped bundle sat just outside my trailer door, tied with twine and sealed with wax. No note. No return address. Just a simple brown package about the size of a shoebox. I didn't open it right away. I stared at it for almost an hour, sitting on the steps with my coffee growing cold beside me. Finally, I carried it inside, set it on the kitchen counter, and pulled the twine loose. Inside was a photo album. Our photo album. From the early years. Before things got complicated. When we still printed photos, wrote captions by hand, and kept ticket stubs tucked between the pages. I hadn't seen it in years. I thought it was in a box in the attic back home. I flipped through it. At first, everything looked the same. Page 1, us at the lake, her wearing sunglasses too big for her face. Page 5, our first apartment. Cramped. Ugly couch. Smiles that didn't know how much they had to lose. But then I noticed the notes. Sticky notes. Yellow. In her handwriting. You smiled like this when you met my dad. You hated this beach, but you came for me. Do you still remember this night? And then something new. A photo I didn't recognize. Me sleeping. In the trailer. Recently. Same blanket. Same position. Same light leaking in through the thin curtain. She'd been inside. I dropped the album. My pulse spiked. My mind raced. I checked every lock, every window, every drawer. Nothing missing. Nothing broken. But not everything was where I left it. A cup in the sink that hadn't been there. A drawer cracked open. And one object I didn't recognize, a folded note under my pillow. 4 words. You're still not listening. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't even angry. It was something worse. It was an invitation. And I didn't know if I was terrified or tempted. I didn't sleep after finding the album. I just sat there in the dark, the note still clutched in my hand, the photo of myself sleeping lying flat on the counter. Something about that image gnawed at me, not just the invasion, but the intent. Whoever took it had been close. Quiet. Patient. And it wasn't just someone. It was her. Sienna. She had found me. In the middle of nowhere. In a town with no airport, no billboards, no reason to exist. She traced me here. Found the trailer. Got inside. Left me a photo album, a note, and a chilling reminder that I hadn't gone as far as I thought. And now what? The rest of that morning moved in slow, nauseating waves. I rechecked the trailer. Again. Again. Every drawer, every cabinet, every surface. I looked for more notes. A wire. A device. Anything. But there was nothing else. Just the same quiet hum of isolation that used to feel comforting, now warped and suffocating. I didn't go to work that night. Didn't call in either. They wouldn't ask. People disappear here all the time for a night, for a week. Some don't come back. No one talks about it. Instead, I drove. The roads around Monroe Flats stretch out like veins on a dead map, endless, dusty, forgotten. I drove until the trailer park was a pinprick in the mirror and didn't turn back until the sun was bleeding into the horizon. And when I got back, another signal. This one smaller. The light on my porch was off. I never turned it off. Inside, the album was gone. Gone. Every photo. Every sticky note. Every page. Vanished. I tore through the trailer like a man looking for proof he hadn't lost his mind. But it was really gone. No note this time. No message. Just absence. And that was worse. Because it meant she was still watching. Still choosing when I saw her, when I saw anything. Still pulling strings from whatever perch she'd built in the shadows of my new life. That night, I sat in the same spot she must have stood to take the photo. I replayed the angle, tried to reconstruct the moment. She'd been careful. Precise. The curtain was open just enough. The blanket bunched just so. My breathing captured mid-motion. She'd known exactly what she was doing. And if she knew how to do that, what else did she know? What else had she taken? The next morning, I found something else. Not in the trailer. Outside. Buried under a pile of rocks behind the gas station, a place I'd never thought to look. A small tin box. Rusted shut, almost fused from years of weather. But someone had pried it open recently. The inside was dry. Inside was an address, a key, and a strip of Polaroids snapped in rapid succession. The same man from the elevator footage. Daniel. And Sienna. In various states of laughter, seriousness, tension. One showed the mid-argument. Another, Sienna wiping her eyes. And the last one? Just him. Alone. Face turned away. Standing near the edge of a rooftop. No timestamp. No context. Just implication. I didn't recognize the building, but I recognized the feeling. This wasn't just about me anymore. Whatever game she was playing, it had layers I hadn't understood. Depths I hadn't even started to consider. I pocketed the key and the address. Drove for hours. Past farms, past dead fields, past things that hadn't breathed in decades. The address led to a storage unit on the outskirts of a town called Delwyn. The kind of place where even the locksmith looks like he doesn't want to be involved. I found unit number 43. Used the key. The door creaked up to reveal silence. Dust. Cold air. A cot. A duffel bag. And a box labeled DJ, his initials. Daniel. Inside, I found notebooks. Dozens. Each filled with obsessively neat handwriting. Bullet points. Dates. Names. Schedules. Preferences. Like someone was documenting case studies. Like he was studying people. One notebook was devoted entirely to Sienna. At first, I thought it might be a twisted journal. But it wasn't emotional. It was clinical. Subject, S.M. Groomed for independence but susceptible to praise. Ideal reinforcement, gifts with perceived emotional value. Response patterns, guilt, withdrawal, affection cycle. Vulnerabilities, perceived abandonment, asterisk asterisk. Countermeasures, mirror her tone, offer familiarity, retreat. It kept going. Pages and pages of observations. Experiments. Tests. Her life cataloged like a behavioral study. And then I found my name. In another notebook. The last one. Trevor D. Partner to subject S.M. Loyal. Predictable. Subtly isolated from social anchors. Emotional baseline, calm, introspective, slow to anger. Malleable, unaware of triangulation protocol, asterisk asterisk. Useful as a stability placeholder for subject experimentation. I read the words over and over. Stability placeholder. Like I was a tool. An emotional control group. A buffer. This wasn't just cheating. This wasn't about romance or loneliness or neglect. This was something deeper. Predatory. Planned. Engineered. That's when she appeared. Sienna. Out of nowhere. Just stepped into the unit like she'd been standing in the dark, waiting for me to get far enough into the notebook before speaking. I didn't K*LL him, she said. Her voice was flat. Not scared. Not sad. Just explaining. I didn't push him. He jumped. But I nudged him. I fed the risk. Made him feel invincible. I didn't move. She walked further into the room, past the duffel bag, past the cot. No hesitation. She picked up one of the notebooks and flipped through it casually. He thought he was in control, she said, smiling faintly. But he was always reacting. Always proving something. And in the end, well, she gestured toward the photos. I couldn't find words. I couldn't even feel anger anymore. Just nausea. Just the ache of a world I thought I understood crumbling beneath me again. You used me, I finally said. She turned to me. Met my eyes. No guilt. Just an unspoken truth. You were safe, she said. You still are. And then, as if she'd finished what she came to say, she left. No threat. No closure. Just the echo of a door rolling down behind her. I didn't run. Not this time. Maybe because there was nothing left to run from. Or maybe because, after everything, I finally understood what I was up against, not just a person, but a pattern. A system. Sienna wasn't broken. She was calibrated. Precise. Every lie, every gesture, every moment she gave and then took away, it all served a purpose. But I wasn't her test subject anymore. That night, I brought the notebooks back to the trailer. Scanned every page. Every list. Every photograph. I didn't skip the ugly parts. I didn't look away. One page described Daniel's final weeks, his spiral into obsession, his need to win her back, to outmaneuver some invisible enemy he couldn't name. That enemy, I now realized, was the version of her she wanted him to see. A version she could control. And when that crumbled, so did he. She hadn't pushed him. But she pointed him toward the edge and told him there was treasure waiting at the bottom. In the final notebook, there were other names. Not just mine. Not just Daniel. There were 5 other men. And 2 women. each with a corresponding entry detailed like a psychological profile. Strengths, triggers, emotional responses. And each one followed a similar arc: seduction, manipulation, breakdown, discard. This wasn't a romance gone wrong. This was a blueprint. And now I had proof. I spent the next week scanning everything. Not just the notebooks, but the photos, the documents, the storage lease agreement. I made copies, labeled them, even screen capped the footage from the elevator and annotated it with timestamps and GPS logs from my work calendar to counter her Miami claim. Then I sent it all to someone I trusted, Marcus, an old college friend who now wrote long-form investigative pieces for a mid-size but credible publication. He'd once told me, if you ever have a story people won't believe, come to me first. So I did. I sent it anonymously at first, just the data. Then I called. "This is real," he said after a pause. "Jesus, Trev? This is serious." "I know. Are you okay?" "No." But I was getting there. A month later, the article went live. It didn't use names, too many legal risks, but it didn't need to. It focused on the pattern, on the psychological cruelty behind relationships that feel consensual but aren't. That start with love and end with erosion. The response was overwhelming. Not viral, not loud, but steady, private. Women and a few men emailed the publication saying they'd lived through similar dynamics. Different people, same dance, same tactics, same emotional scars. Some even mentioned Sienna by name. I didn't read them all, but I read enough to know that what happened to me wasn't an isolated storm. It was part of something larger. She'd moved on, I was sure. Maybe reinvented herself again. Changed her hair. Changed her name. She was too smart to stay in one place. Too self-aware to not adapt. But the story was out now. The map was published. And maybe that would be enough. I moved north. Found a small lakeside town where no one asked questions and the air smelled like pine and rain. I fixed bicycles for a living, kids' bikes, tourist rentals, old 10-speeds rusted from memory. Each morning, I drank coffee by the water. Each night, I slept a little easier. One day, while unpacking a box I hadn't touched since the trailer, I found something I didn't remember packing: a small, stubby birthday candle. Probably from a cupcake. Maybe from the year she surprised me with 27 tiny cakes because I said once I never liked parties. I lit it. Let it burn all the way down. No wish. Just silence. Just peace. The story was over. And I was still here,